Hello everyone, the Scrubs like, King Denominator here, and holy crap, where have I been? Anyway, I'm back with something a little different, an iceberg video. And the topic of this iceberg is secrets, spies, and espionage. As with all icebergs, we're going to cover the more known things up top. And as we dive deeper, things are going to get a lot more obscure and disturbing. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Alright, so we're going to start off with level 1, Mailbox. Created in 1952, the NSA is a United States intelligence agency that protects U.S. information systems and produces foreign intelligence by intercepting and decoding foreign communications. It is the principal American code-breaking organization. Well, at least that's what they are on paper, but us Americans, we all know what the NSA is really about.
Local mosque, Seattle.
NSA, don't mind me.
The Federal Agency of Government Communications and Information, or FAPSI, was basically the Russian equivalent of the NSA. It formed in 1991 but was replaced in 2003 with the, I'm gonna butcher this, Spetsnaz? The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, open up! Is the United States Federal Investigative Agency and was created in 1935, superseding the prior Bureau of Investigation. The FBI's goal is to protect the U.S. from foreign intelligence operations, espionage, and terrorist attacks. It also combats domestic crime, corruption, and criminal organizations. The CIA, or Central Intelligence Agency, is a United States intelligence agency that was created in 1947. The CIA operates on an international scale and uses spies as well as sophisticated technology for intelligence, counterintelligence, and covert operations for national security. The head of the CIA reports directly to the Director of National Intelligence. MI5, or Military Intelligence Sector 5, is the British counterintelligence service and is focused on internal security within the United Kingdom. MI6 is the British Foreign Intelligence Service and conducts operations to obtain intelligence and disrupt threats from foreign sources. MI6 is also known as the SIS. The SOE, or the British Special Operations Executive, was established in 1940 to engage in sabotage, subversion, and the formation of resistant groups in German-occupied Europe. Prior to the collapse of the Soviet Union, the KGB, or Committee for State Security, was a Soviet agency responsible for foreign intelligence and domestic security. The KGB was formed and reformed from mergers of many different agencies since World War I, and was larger than all Western intelligence agencies combined at the time of the Cold War. Now that the tip of the iceberg has been covered, let's begin our descent with Level 2, Filing Cabinet. East Germany's Ministry of State Security, also known as the Stasi, was formed on February 8, 1950. They used more than 90,000 officers and 173,000 informers during the Cold War to police the communist East Germany, and it was basically a subsidiary branch of the KGB. Now, here's something crazy about this organization. The Stasi was discovered to have stored thousands of jars which contained the scents of possible dissidents, each jar having trained dogs to specifically hunt them down. The Stasi was dismantled in 1990. Who was the first spy? Well, this is obviously not an easy question to answer, though it was probably a man who climbed a tree to find out what his neighbors were doing. With one arm wrapped around the trunk, he probably peered over the wall and thought to himself, why were his neighbors' goats so healthy and cheerful? What was he feeding them? Where did he get his food? We may never know who the first spy was, but whoever it may have been, their goal was definitely to gather intelligence. The first written record of spying was in 1800 BC. Archaeologists inspected captured clay tablets in King Hammurabi's palace to learn about their enemies. It was discovered that they kept track of tips from the marketplace, rumors from gossip, and reports from the queen. On one of the secret tablets, modern cryptographers discovered a death warrant inscribed on it that roughly translated to, if there is a ditch in the countryside or in the city, Make this man disappear. Created in 1943 by Britain, the Colossus was this giant computer that was used to crack German codes that were made by the Enigma machines during World War II, which we will talk about later on. Robert Hanssen was an FBI agent who secretly worked for Russian intelligence during the Cold War. Hansen's betrayal was known as the worst intelligence disaster in US history, in which he sold over 6,000 classified documents that detailed nuclear war strategies, military weapons development, and US counterintelligence program information. Hansen amassed a $1.4 million fortune in cash, gold Rolexes, and diamonds. Fortunately, he was caught and arrested on February 18, 2001, and sentenced to 15 life sentences. He died in prison in 2003. Jacques Giacomo Casanova was an Italian adventurer and was literally known as one of the most interesting men of his time. Yes, he was the Dos Equis guy before the Dos Equis guy. One day while in the company of the British Navy, he was entertained by the captains of the British fleet at Dunkirk, and had this to say about it. And quote, "I found plenty of young officers delighted to show their own importance, who gossip without needing any encouragement from me." Later, Casanova reported on the strength and discipline of the British fleet to the King of France. Now, why did he do this? Probably just for the fuck of it. This guy was a literal Chad, and he is worth doing some research on. Level 3. Combination Safe. Established April 26, 1933, the Gestapo was the secret police of fascist Germany and its captured territories during World War II. Marcus Wolf directed foreign intelligence for the Stasi for 30 years. His true identity wasn't uncovered until 1978, so up until then, he was referred to as the man without a face. The Covert spy ring was the United States' first intelligence organization created during the American Revolution. It was discovered that the British were planning a raid on Newport, Rhode Island. The attack would coincide with the arrival of 7,600 French troops needed to bolster the struggling United States Continental Army. General George Washington wrote a letter detailing his plans to invade New York with an exaggerated army of 12,000 men. An agent handed the letter to the British, saying that he found it on the road. As a result, British ships changed direction and headed straight to New York. In Newport, the French ships arrived unopposed and successfully defended the harbor. Members of the Covert spy ring never revealed themselves and remained silent after the revolution, for reasons I will explain later on. On October 4, 1918, an American battalion was surrounded by Germans in the Argonne Forest. The soldiers' last hope was a black check-cock carrier pigeon named Cher Ami. With a canister attached to his left leg, the pigeon rose into the air. The German infantry saw the bird and fired. Cher Ami was hit in the breast and leg but managed to recover and fly 25 miles in 25 minutes. He lost his leg but was given a wooden prosthetic and was blinded in one eye. Cher saved 194 lives, and on June 13, 1919, the little hero died of his war wounds. He was stuffed and given to the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Enigma machines were code-generating computers created and used by fascist Germany during World War II. They were capable of producing 150... What is that? I'm not even... Just no. I'm going to say bajillion. Alright? They were capable of producing 150 bajillion combinations. The Enigma looks like a typewriter, but the keyboard was connected electrically to a series of rotors. Each time a letter was typed, the rotors changed the substitution pattern. The result was sent in Morse code. The receiver's Enigma translated the Morse code back to meaningless words, but if the rotors on the receiver's machine were adjusted the same as those on the sender's, the words would be transposed into the original message. The starting position and connections on the rotors were reset daily. Level 4. Top Secret Vault. In 1979, Iranian revolutionary students attacked the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 American hostages. 6 diplomats escaped and were hidden by Canadian diplomats. CIA Chief of Disguise Antonio Mendez conducted an operation to rescue them. First, the agency leased a studio space in Hollywood, then ran photos and announcements of a movie called Argo in entertainment newspapers. Finally, a CIA team flew over to Iran pretending to be a Hollywood film crew, scouting locations for the movie. One of the captors, the recovered Consul General, was transformed into a flamboyant director with tight pants, gold chains, and an Elvis hairdo. The other captured conservative diplomats were disguised as Hollywood types. The film crew escaped to Canada with the help of the Canadian ambassador Kenneth Taylor. The successful mission was kept secret for 17 years. Wow, I guess reality is often stranger than fiction. Created in 1920, the Abwehr was Germany's military intelligence organization during the 1930s and early 1940s. It established the largest spy ring ever to operate in the United States, as far as we know. Did you know that George Washington was a spy master during the American Revolution? First U.S. President George Washington was general of the Continental Army during the American Revolution and faced a British military that was larger and better trained. He knew he would lose unless he could get information on numbers, movements, and strategies of the enemy. Spying was considered ungentlemanly at the time, as soldiers were supposed to fight with honor on the battlefield, which is why members of the aforementioned Covert spy ring never revealed themselves after the war, as they found it shameful. But hey, sometimes a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, especially when your country's independence is on the line. And well, it worked out pretty well in the end. There are 2 spies sitting in a cafe in Rome in the early 1960s. There was a tall, dark spy codenamed Woodchuck and a short, blonde spy codenamed Marshmallow. The agents are concerned that the cafe is bugged, so they speak in code. Here's a small excerpt of their conversation. What happened in Moscow? Ears only. Of course. I was burned. You didn't dry clean? Several times. Babysitters? Nope. You had a shoe? And an L pill. I tried to bite the end off, but they grabbed it. Then what happened? They duct taped my hands and mouth and took me to the center. Oh no. Here's the translation key. Try it for yourself. Should make for an interesting conversation for those around you. A bizarre yet possibly useful way of undermining an enemy is stench warfare. This tactic was used by, of course, French resistance fighters during World War II. They would mix a compound that smelled like, well, doo-doo, and spray it onto nearby fascist officers. This tactic was aptly named, Who, Me? Which is an American expression used to deflect blame elsewhere after an episode of flatulence. They stopped using it after 2 weeks as, well, the smell was annoying and it would get on to the resistance fighters. Level 5, Underground Base. Virginia Hall, nicknamed Dindy, was born in 1906 in Baltimore, Maryland, and spent her early years on her father's livestock farm. Dindy studied languages and became fluent in French, German, and Italian. At 25, she became a clerk at an American embassy in Warsaw, Poland, where she would later lose her left leg below the knee in a hunting accident. During World War II, Dindy organized a resistance network in the city of Vichy, France, where she helped escaped prisoners and downed pilots get back to England. The city was ultimately overrun by German forces, and she escaped by climbing through the Pyrenees Mountains with a wooden leg. She then collaborated with the American intelligence agencies and returned to France under the guise of a haggard, cane-using peasant woman. In occupied France, she blew up bridges, disrupted enemy communications, and sabotaged rail lines. And while tending to her livestock, she reported on German activities. The Gestapo hung up wanted flyers of Dindy with the caption, "The woman who limps is one of the most dangerous Allied agents in France. We must find and destroy her." But they were always one step behind her, as they never caught the limping lady. During World War I, thousands of tons of munitions were stored on a spit of land in the New York harbor called Black Tom Island. It was an inviting target for the German Empire's saboteurs. On July 30th, 1916, Black Tom Island erupted, and the explosion was heard 100 miles away. Windows in New York City shattered, the Brooklyn Bridge swayed back and forth, and the Statue of Liberty was bombarded with fragments. It is accepted that the Black Tom Island incident may have been the result of German sabotage, though to this day we still don't know who or what was truly responsible for the explosion. This man single-handedly was one of the reasons why France was able to dominate Europe for 2 centuries. His name is Cardinal Richelieu, and he set up a secret spy syndicate known as Cabinet Noir, which intercepted letters and stole secrets for the French king. Cabinet Noir had an army of spies throughout Europe, which included dancing and fencing instructors in the royal courts. When you hear the words spies, espionage, and sabotage, the average Joe probably thinks of movies and television shows. I mean, life does imitate art, does it not? And reality may not be that much stranger than fiction. This is what the KGB thought in the 1960s, as their agents were trained to watch the TV show Mission Impossible, because they were convinced that they would learn CIA techniques. Fast forward to the War on Terror, it was discovered that the CIA had found evidence in seized Al-Qaeda documents that bin Laden's operatives watched action-adventure movies for ideas. No, I'm not saying that Al-Qaeda was inspired by some Hollywood TV show or film to do 9/11, but it would be pretty disturbing if that were indeed the case. Eli Cohen was an Egyptian-born Jew whose parents had immigrated from Syria. He was a Zionist and in 1949 was expelled from university for his pro-Israel activities. In 1965, he lived in his villa overlooking the Syrian army headquarters. Cohen was dashing and charismatic, and often threw these elegant parties which entertained the Syrian president and head of intelligence. They reciprocated this by often giving him a tour of the front lines of the conflict between Syria and Israel. Cohen strongly encouraged them to grow protective trees around their guard posts and bases, and once this was implemented, Israeli Air Force used the trees to pinpoint and destroy most of the Syrian bases. Cohen also provided photos and drawings of the fortifications, as well as details behind the Syrian invasion plans. This intelligence helped Israel win the Six-Day War in June 1967.
Level 6. Location.
From 1975 to 1977, CIA agents were issued these special glasses that contained a cyanide pill at the tip of one of its arms. If the agent were ever compromised, they were instructed to chew on the arm that contained the pill and go forever sleep. Yikes, talk about bad vision. Larry Wu Tai-Chin was a Chinese translator for the CIA, as well as a Chinese mole. This man was an absolute villain. He provided the names of CIA spies in China, ratted out anti-communist Chinese in Korea, sold American national intelligence estimate analysis to China, as well as benefited the NVA during Vietnam. It is said that this man's actions may have single-handedly given the North Vietnamese several battle victories, as well as delayed the armistice of the Korean War by more than a year. He was finally exposed in 1985 and unalived himself 2 weeks after his conviction. The CIA was not above using any means necessary to achieve their intelligence gathering goals. In one such case, I'm quoting CIA official Victor Marchetti. They, the CIA, slit the cat open, put batteries in him, wired them up. The tail was used as an antenna. They found he would walk off the job when he got hungry, so they put another wire in to override that. They took it to a park and pointed it at a park bench, and a taxi comes and runs him over. There they were sitting in the van with all those dials, and the cat was dead. Poor kitty. To quote Mark Lloyd, Initially, it was considered improper to employ women in SOE operations. Churchill was asked to adjudicate and deferred on the side of reality. Of the 52 female agents sent by SOE into France, 17 were arrested, of whom 12 died in concentration camps. Meet Violet Sabo. Because of her fluency in French, she was employed with the First Aid Nursing Yeomanry branch of the SOE and was an exceptionally good shot. She was involved in a gun battle which saw her protecting the leader of the French resistance until she ran out of ammo, after which she was captured and sent to a concentration camp. Unfortunately, she died there in 1945. She was only 23 years old. Operation Pastorius was the German plan to infiltrate the American homeland and damage war supply lines at the source. The operation gave 8 saboteurs extensive training on how to be American, educating them on slang such as "scram" and "what a bunch of nuts," as well as familiarizing them with popular athletes of the time and the Star-Spangled Banner. 2 German U-boats left the coast of France on May 1942, each containing 4 of the saboteurs. One was to land on Long Island, New York, and the other was to land on the coast of Florida. On June 13th, the first U-boat landed in New York a few miles off target, and when they came ashore, they were met by Coast Guardsmen patrolling the area. George Dosh, the leader, was able to bribe the guardsmen, and they fled into the night, burying their explosives and detonators in the sand of the beach they arrived on. The next day, the Coast Guard dug them up. 4 days later, the second U-boat unloaded its 4 saboteurs on the floor of the beach. They came ashore in bathing suits, so no one really noticed or cared. The plan was to blow up aluminum plants and railroad systems, and it may have been successful had George Dosh, the leader, not betrayed the mission. You see, George Dosh turned himself into the FBI and exposed the plan, which they initially thought was a prank. No one really knows why Dosh became a traitor. It's presumed that he was disgruntled with his position in the fascist party, or that more likely he saw the mission as a lost cause and was trying to save his own skin. It was reported that the men had enough equipment and explosives for a 2-year campaign of terror. Dosh and an accomplice were imprisoned at the Fort Leavenworth military prison, but they were deported back to Germany 3 years after the war had ended. The other 6 were tried and given the electric chair on August 8, 1942. Well, that was the Secrets, Spies, and Espionage iceberg. Research for this video was conducted using a book called Secrets, Lies, Gizmos, and Spies, A History of Spies and Espionage by Janet Wyman Coleman, in association with the International Spy Museum. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Depending on how it does, I may do another one. Anyway, that's about it, and I will see you guys in the next one.